Hello everyone and welcome back to another buyer's guide. We haven't done one of these for a while, so we've got a lovely car here which is begging for one. In recent years, well, it's obviously a Honda S2000. In recent years these have started to skyrocket in price, so if you're in the market for one, there's a good few things you need to look out for. These were produced between the years 1999 to 2009. In that 10-year span we had two variations, the AP1, this one, and then the AP2. Main differences being the AP1 was a lot more raw, it had stiffer suspension, stiffer anti-roll bars, it had a 2-litre engine, but even though it was a 2-litre engine, it produces more power than the later AP2 2.2-litre engine. The only main differences in the engine is obviously the displacement, but the torque. So another reason they put the 2.2 version in the AP2 is just to refine it a bit more, make it a bit more softer, easier to live with. So again, the AP2 had softer suspension, softer anti-roll bars, and actually had some torque within the engine, so you didn't have to drive it as hard as you do an AP1. So where do we start with buying a Honda S2000? Well, we start with the basics. You want to stand back from the car, make sure it's all cold when you get there. So one way of doing that is quick hand on the bonnet, feel the wheels, just make sure it's all cold, because you want to be checking the car from cold. But yeah, first of all, you want to stand back from the car. You want to check that all the panels are the same colour, because that's a good indication that it's had an accident or it's had paint work. And believe it or not, paint is a lot of money nowadays. So that's one way to chip the price if you can, but also, more importantly, you can tell whether the car's had an accident. While we're talking about accidents, you want to be making sure all these panel gaps are the same, so they're all uniform. Nothing looks out of place, including the bumpers, headlights. While we're talking about the headlights, you want to look at the headlight brackets as well. They're really weak on Japanese cars in general, so if you have had a tap at the front, generally it'll break the light brackets, and they're very expensive. So generally people don't change them, they just get them back into roughly the right position, or they repair them. So yeah, have a good look around there. Also with that, gaps. But there is a real Achilles heel on Honda S2000s. They do like to corrode. So one reason that these cars were so good is because they were really lightweight. One way Honda likes to get cars lightweight, I'm not beating it, I love Hondas, they're my favourite, is they made the metal really thin. So obviously, unfortunately, that leaves them open to rust. I mean, they're over 20, some are 24 years old now this year, so they've been out in the elements if they haven't been looked after. And the key areas that they like to rust, I've only seen it on a couple of them where they've gone on the front, but generally it's around the back end. Even if you can't see any rust on the outside, this is generally a place they do go. You need to check on the inner arch as well, because that goes all the way around, especially up in this back area, because that's where the dirt gets held and you can't get to it and wash it properly. But also down in this front piece they go. Another problem area I've seen is actually in the bottom of the boot. So I've seen them rust through there. I've seen a lot of these. So that's another area you've got to look out for. But engine-wise, should we get over to the engine? So the engine. Obviously this is an AP1, so it should have a 2-litre, so the F20C in. Ignore the supercharger. This is, because it's one of ours, it's obviously a bit more spicy, but the fundamentals still apply. So yeah, these produce just over 240 horsepower from a 2-litre, which is good going. But the main reason they produce that power is because they rev so high. So peak power is made at 9,000 RPM. Obviously the 2.2 is a little bit less. I think they're like 233 horsepower or so. But obviously they've got a lot more torque. But yeah, one inherent problem, well, is it a problem? It's an issue. Because they rev so hard, it's going to burn oil. That's just because the engine's moving so fast. Oil gets past the rings. It's as simple as that. Any engine will do that if it's revving that hard. But what that means is, if you're not up to date with looking after your car, dipping the oil, stuff like that, you can actually get low on oil. So that means you're going to damage bearings, stuff like that. You could get rod knock. So that's one thing you want to look out for. So that's another reason you need to look at any car when it's cold, so you can hear any issues. When you start it up when it's cold as well, get a mate or somebody, or even put your phone at the back just to record the exhaust to see if any smoke comes out, anything like that. Another issue with these is the earlier ones, the timing chain tensioner, these are chain driven, they actually get weak, so that can give you a ticking noise which can then damage the chain, and if that's not caught early enough, it can obviously decimate the engine and cause a lot of damage, and these are not cheap engines. I've done a few timing chains on these. You're supposed to take the head off because the chain actually comes up through the head, because there's like a separate gear in the middle which then drives the cams separately. But you can actually do it in situ if you've got some mates or you've got the right tool in to hold the gear in, the cam gears straight, because they've got like anti-knock gears in them, so they're basically two gears. But you don't need to know that. But yeah. And another thing, because it revs so high, the gearbox is on the other end of that. So because you're revving at like 9,000 RPM and changing gears, obviously any gearbox is going to struggle to keep up synchro-wise with that amount of revolutions. So again, if you're a bit too flamboyant on the gear changes and you change too quick, obviously that can wear the synchros, which can give you crunching. Again, if the car hasn't been serviced properly, all that stuff, so it hasn't had gearbox oil changes, that can also cause the same issue as well. So you want to drive it from cold after you've obviously checked and can't hear any noises, get in it as soon as you can while it's cold, and then drive it up to temperature, so you can feel the gearbox while it's cold, listen for any noises from the engine, from the gearbox, from the rear diff, and just make sure everything's good. And then when you get back from that test drive as well, once it's all warm, leave it running, get round it, get somebody to rev it, just pick it up slowly through the rev range, because generally if there is any engine damage, you'll hear it at a certain RPM. So just get somebody to gently bring it up, or even do it off the throttle yourself. Well, you can't on this one, it's fly by. Yeah, just get a mate to bring it up slowly, just go all the way through the rev range, listen carefully, again looking for smoke, but yeah, even more importantly, any noise. But yeah, while we're under the bonnet as well, you want to be checking the chassis legs. Water does sit in these as well, so that can cause corrosion, but more importantly, you want to be looking for any damage, any weird repairs. Does anything look out of the ordinary from side to side? Things like that. Generally all the basic stuff you're looking for on a normal car anyway. Yeah, so as I'm working my way around the engine bay, another key point to look at is if panels have been off, is to look at the bolts, see if there's any socket marks or anything like this. Obviously on this car I can see that this has had the panels off, and that's because we know it's had a full respray. It was fully restored 2 or 3 years ago, so that means all the panels have been off and it's been painted properly, because that's what you want. But everything lines up perfectly, everything's still OEM, and as you close the bonnet, everything lines up, and voila. So as we're working our way through the car, obviously we're checking all the door shuts, things like that. One good way to tell if it's had a cheap repair or anything is just to run your fingers down the edge of the door shuts. If they haven't sprayed right in, or it's had a cheap repair or whatever, or you can't tell it's had paint, you can feel if it's a bad repair. Is it like a sharp edge where the paint hasn't gone all the way in? So that's another good thing to look at. Obviously check all the way around the doors as well, because that'll tell you if that panel's been painted, or the front one, or down here. While we're down here as well, that can rust as well, the low sill, but obviously it's one of ours, it's absolutely perfect. And then move out. So these do have a soft top. This one's obviously got hard top on because it's better and it's hard. But yeah, the soft tops do break away down here, so the material goes thin and ruptures. You can get replacement hard tops. I believe there's a company who do whole ones, and it's an exchange basis, which is really good. But while we're on the soft top, while we're on the soft tops though, the elastic within the actual mechanism goes weak as well, so then they can all sag. And another thing, while you're out on road tests, you've got some check plates at the front here where the roof actually latches into. On the earlier ones, they wear, and yeah, it means the roof will start rattling, which is horrible when you're driving, but that's actually been superseded by a new part by Honda, which you can get, and they're easily easy to change, and it's actually harder material, so they don't wear. So that's something else to look out for. Another telltale sign on S2000s is if they've had work as these weather strips, which are on the arch as standard. If it's still got it like this one, you want to be peeling them back, because obviously that just holds dirt, it holds water on the seam of the metal. It's a bit of a bad idea on Honda's part. Whenever I've bought a new Honda, I've ripped them off straight away, just because then you can clean it properly, and yeah, you're not going to be holding any crap there. So that's another place where you want to be looking. Again, checking all the bumper lines up nice, because the bumper bars on these do dissolve. And then we get over to the boot. So if you can, you want to be pulling these lower panels out, definitely. Because yeah, as I have said before, I've seen holes in the bottom of the boot. And while you've got that out, you want to try and pull this panel back. Obviously, don't damage anything, be careful. If you're not going to buy the car, obviously, you don't want to annoy the current owner, do we? So you just flick out all these clips and just get a torch, look down in these rear quarters, because generally they rot from the inside out. Even better if you've got a little camera that you can put onto your phone, like a scope camera, that'd be perfect, because then you jab it right down in and have a look. As we work our way to the inside of the car, everybody, a few key things to help you. Well, this is the same with any car, just to help you tie in the mileage and that it's genuine, is looking for wear on the bolsters of the seat, wear on the steering wheel, wear on the gear knob. If it's like a 20,000 mile car and there's wear on the steering wheel or seat, stuff like that, that's a good sign that obviously it's been clocked. Especially with imports as well, it's a big thing now that generally every import that comes over from Japan's got 60,000 miles on it. Like, I don't know, I've seen Skylines and stuff like that where the mileage really does not tie in with the wear on the vehicle. So yeah, that's another thing you need to look out for. It's a simple one, but it can be overlooked. Obviously, it's exciting if you're British and you've found a car that's got low miles, because that's what we do over here. Yeah, so that's just another thing to verify. And as well as that is like obviously the floor carpet as well, where your heels sit on the pedals. If there's a lot more wear there than there should be, that's another one as well. So let's take it for a little blip, shall we? So now we're inside the car, aren't we, Nathan? Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking where any possible wear areas might be, even on the actual door handle itself. Gear knob, this has got an aftermarket one, Skunk 2, lovely choice. But on the steering wheel and everything like that, it's absolutely perfect. There's just an ever so slight bit of wear there, so that ties in with, oh, there's that lovely Honda alarm we have there, which lets you know that the keys are in ignition. Car's cold, it's got 51,000 miles on it. Everything ties in with 51,000 miles. There she is running. Try and turn this down for you all. Had my beats on, didn't I? Yeah, but that's totally cold now. Sounds lovely. Didn't see any smoke come out the back. Like a sewing machine, that's what we like. Another thing, handbrake's nice and low. That means that it's been well serviced as well. If you've got a car where the handbrake's right up here, either it's been driven really hard and somebody's been on the handbrake all the time, this is a rear wheel drive car, or it's not been serviced very well, so that's another thing you need to look at. So yeah, just a few clicks, it's about halfway within its travel, which is what you want on any car. Lovely. Now we're back on the outside of the car, checking all the glass. Obviously you can see most of it from the inside, but yeah, glass in these is very expensive. It's a Japanese car, so you want to be checking for any chips, any separation. These start to separate in these bottom corners, so that means it starts to go white and cloudy as the laminate actually starts to separate. Another thing, when you go out on your road test, you want to be listening for knocking from the suspension. These have multi-link suspension, that's why they handle so well. But that also means they've actually got more bushes, so there's more parts to wear. So that's another thing to look out for. When the engine's turned off as well, you can give the steering a little rock as well. See if you can hear any noises. That's another telltale sign for ball joints, wear in the rack, stuff like that. Another thing as well, Hondas, if they're sat for a while, the seals in the calipers aren't very good. So yeah, basically you get rust in the caliper, which means the brakes can stick on, makes them a bit pants really. So once you've been out on your road test as well, be really careful doing this. So you want to use the back of your hand and just go around the wheels side to side, so front left, front right, rear left, and just make sure the temperatures are about the same from left to right, because that's a good indication if you've got a binding caliper and stuff like that, because they're another expensive part. So any angle, you can chip the price a little bit, or well, it lets you know how the car's been looked after, more importantly. But yeah, so I hope you've all enjoyed that. Oh, and another thing that I just thought of, the headlights do really cloud up on these because they're actually plastic lenses, but it is a good way to chip the price because the headlights are a lot of money, but you can actually polish it out and then give them a good ceramic coating and they'll be good as new. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and yeah, see you on the next one. Thank you.